Welcome to the Behind the Wind podcast. I'm Lauren Lane. For 50 years now, the LSI team has dedicated themselves to the science of business development. We've seen the impact of our work and how it's evolved into economic development and now social impact work. This week, Sean and I have the opportunity to meet with Dr. Natalie Grana, a world-renowned horn artist, Fulbright scholar, author, doctor of musical arts, and Sean's personal alphorn teacher. Sean and Dr. Grana are going to talk about the process of learning something new as an adult, solfège, and what it means to be a good student. Let's start playing.
Well, thanks for doing this, Dr. Natalie Grana, one of my most favorite people in the world. Thank you for being here. How cold is it in Chicago?
My gosh, I should I've got my space heater going. I think it's in the single digits. It's not warm. It's not warm for sure.
When I left my house this morning, it was minus 10. It is so cold here.
Oh, God.
So
okay, so I don't get to complain. Is what you're saying.
I mean, it's fun for me, as you know. We have had so many
You live for this one. This is your favorite.
I love this. I love this time of year. I love it when it's cold. It's like cold, sunny. Those ice crystals are in the air. It's just awesome. I think it's so fun. We've had so many celebrities on our podcast, congressmen, senators, captains of industry, but we have never had such a famous musician and author and performer as you. Thank you for doing this. It's amazing.
Well, I don't know about all that, but I'm absolutely thrilled to be here. So thank you for having me.
So how this came about, last year we did, sort of by accident, Lauren and I recorded 4 episodes on attitude, lifelong learning, hard work, and goal setting. And it was just my thoughts. A lot of this came from Lauren and Jake on, here's an idea that we should explore. And that second episode of lifelong learning, which I don't know how this came about. I was thinking about our time together and your ability to help me learn something new. It came out of that. And we had such an amazing response and visibility from that episode that our communications team said, who is Dr. Grana? Who in the heck is this Dr. Grana that you talked about and obviously are so enamored with? So Jake and Lauren said, let's have her do an episode with us. So that's how this started. It just emanated from that episode from last year. So you're one of my most favorite people in the world. I admire you so much. I'm so honored to have this time with you and talk about our history together and just talk about your work, which is so amazing at such a young age. Talk about your background and how did you become such a famous author and musician and professor?
So, I guess from the very beginning, I was always wanting to be involved in music. My older sister played bassoon in orchestra, and I was fascinated by that. I used to go to her concerts and could not wait to join an ensemble, and landed on French horn and was sort of the worst kid in the band, actually, from the get-go, because I didn't have any musical training before I started an instrument. And so, I didn't sing, I didn't play piano, I didn't read the notes on the page. And learning the horn was very, very difficult for me for that reason. There's sort of multiple things happening, right? When you're learning music, you're learning physically how to play an instrument, like an actual, for Sean, it's the alphorn, and also I guess now the French horn, but clarinet, whatever, flute, you name it. You're learning how to physically, what we call tone production, make a sound on the instrument. But then there's also this added component of music literacy, right? Music is a language. And so here I am at 8 years old, not only trying to learn how to hold a French horn and blow into a French horn and make it make sound, but also look at sheet music and be able to read it like I would read text. So again, kind of 2 components, right? There's the conceptual and there's the physical. Anyway, wasn't going well for me because I was completely novice at both. And now having done the studies that I have, we are, of course, and this makes sense, this would be, I think, intuitive for anybody, regardless of their musical background. It's much easier to learn an instrument when you're already musically literate, right? unfortunately, in the US, we tend to jump right into physically playing an instrument in an ensemble. We love band here. Everybody tends to approach music through a large ensemble, which was the case for me and many, many other students. And so I just, because I couldn't read music, was just guessing all the time, trying to play the right notes and rhythms and had no idea what was going on. And really, honestly, sincerely, it was like the worst one in the band. I remember there was a bench next to a flagpole right outside the band room, and we had band after school, and my mom would come and pick me up. I would wait for her to pick me up, and I would just sit on that bench and I would just cry because I wanted to be involved in music so badly, but it was not going well.
Was this because of your sister? You just admired your sister and you wanted
Oh
to
yeah,
emulate your sister?
partially emulating her, but then also, I mean, it's just music itself. I was really captivated by it. I remember the first time I heard the first piece I ever remember hearing and being really attached to was Rimsky-Korsakov Scheherazade. Like hearing these orchestral pieces and being like, this is just so beautiful and so amazing. Anyway, I'm being too long-winded here.
I love it.
So I stuck with horn out of just sheer determination, stubbornness, even though it wasn't going well, and decided to major in music in college because I wanted to teach music. And freshman year of college, had to take what was called oral training class, which is a class where you learn what's called solfège. You probably, I mean the audience here, know what solfège is. You just didn't know what the name of it is. It's the do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, the system of adding one syllable per note of the scale. And by using these different syllables, we can train ourselves to look at a piece of music. And by using the syllables, sort of like we attach sounds to letters on the page if we're reading English, by using those syllables, we rearrange them to sing the different pitches on the page, to hear the pitches on the page like I would, like I said, text if I was reading English. And so all of a sudden, all this comes together for me that I can like really look at a piece of music and hear it and internalize it. And of course, then my horn playing just like takes off. Like things seem much more intuitive because I have sort of this very, very strong sense of the sound that I want to create on my horn. And so I knew at that moment, freshman year of college, oh my God, this solfège thing, do, re, mi, is so valuable and so awesome. Why? Okay, first of all, why am I 18? I've played the horn for 10 years. Why am I just learning it now? Like this would have been valuable a long time ago. And how can I now combine these two things? Because I knew that if I had learned this when I was in fourth grade, like so many years of suffering would have been saved. So I ended up doing, like I said, my music ed undergrad, and then I did a master's in French horn performance and a doctorate in French horn performance, and dedicated my dissertation to integrating what we call oral training or solfège training into how we teach and learn the instrument. And then did a Fulbright scholarship in Hungary, where I basically just got my patoot kicked for a year on solfège training, and wrote a book on that experience, giving exercises basically for horn players to learn by ear, to have a very strong concept before they try to play the instrument, that it can read fluently what's written on the page music, read music fluently. So that's sort of me in a nutshell. Just basically a lot of damage, a lot of I'm coming here with a lot of post-traumatic stress from trying to learn the horn kind of backwards as a kid, really is what it is. So
how did you pick up French horn?
Well, honestly, I was like the weirdest kid. They needed a French horn player. I wanted to play bassoon like my sister, but they told me I was too small, which in fairness, I was a little peanut. I mean, I think the bassoon was bigger than I.
You physically could not.
I mean, I probably was about as tall as a bassoon when I wanted to play. Yeah. Can you picture? I mean, it's like 4 feet. The joke name is it's a farting bedpost. It really is just like a big piece of wood, like a 3 or 4 feet long with a billion keys on it. And I don't have big hands. Anyway, band director said, no way, can't play bassoon, got to pick something else. They didn't have any horn players. And I didn't want to play, clarinet or flute like all the other girls. I wanted to play something different. So here I was. I played French horn. I had heard Peter and the Wolf, that Prokofiev. I don't know if you know that piece by Prokofiev, where all the different animals, all the different characters are different instruments, and the wolf is the horn. And I thought that was pretty awesome. So it was an easy sell. It was an easy sell to move me over to horn. So here I am now, this many years later.
And at an early age, you decided that you were going to pursue music as your career and passion. And you did your undergraduate at the University of Cincinnati. How did that happen? Why the University of Cincinnati?
Actually I did my doctorate at Cincinnati, but I did my undergraduate at the University of Illinois. And no, that's fine. I'll be truly honest with you. And I'm very proud of my degree from the University of Illinois. It suited me very well. But I was, like I said, greener than green. I mean, I was the first person in my family to major in music. And so I didn't know what good music schools were. I didn't know anything about auditioning or excerpts or solos. I mean, like I was absolutely bumping around in the dark figuring this out. So like my dad's a Marine. I was raised in a pretty practical family. And so I was like, okay, where can I get certified in state and not spend a lot of money? And that was the University of Illinois. I'm underselling it though. It was a wonderful degree. Love you, all of you in Champaign. I'm very glad I went there, but I can't say that I mean, by the time I got to my doctorate and I went to CCM in Cincinnati, I obviously had a very clear idea of what my objectives and knew what to do. But freshman year of college, man, I was guessing. I didn't know what I was doing.
So you grew up in Chicago, went to the University of Illinois. Did you live at home while you were doing your undergrad?
No. That's a good, it's like a 3-hour drive. Yeah. I grew up up north of the city. So that's a fair piece. So I lived in Urbana. Urbana is where all the weirdos are.
And then
Champagne's where all the cool kids are.
decided that you were going to pursue a master's degree, went to University of Cincinnati. Was there something that compelled you to go to the University of Cincinnati?
So actually, I stayed at Illinois and did my master's in horn performance there because there was a new professor coming in that Sean actually knows. His name's Bernard Scully.
Right. Amazing.
He was playing with the Canadian brass previously. Oh my God, my heart. I love Bernard so much. He is like my mentor, my friend. I just absolutely adore him. So he was coming in when I was finishing my undergrad, so I got to stay there but change teachers, which is a really, really ideal situation. Then when it came time for me to do my doctorate, I very much wanted to study with a man named Randy Gardner, who I call my Yoda. I had seen him, well, actually, I first purchased his book called Mastering the Horn's Low Register when I was in high school and just idolized him. He played second horn with the Philadelphia Orchestra for a very long time. And is just incredibly well versed, not only in the repertoire. He, like said, having that experience playing with Philadelphia, he knows these pieces inside and out and knows how to coach auditions and all these things. But he's also equal parts teacher. He taught at CCM for I don't know how many years before he left, but he was just exceptional when it came to methodically explaining things, having multiple ways of explaining things. I saw him speak this was in 2008 in Denver at the International Horn Society Symposium. He gave us a talk on beginning horn pedagogy. And as soon as I saw him speak, I was like, I have to study with this person. I just knew it. I have this like lightning bolt sort of reaction to hearing him. And so thankfully, the year that I applied, there was a graduate assistantship open. So that meant not only that like my tuition was covered and I got stipended, but more importantly, that I got to do some teaching as a doctoral student. So I started teaching the undergraduate studio class that met every week, working with freshmen through seniors on all sorts of things. Like I said, tone production, music literacy, auditions, all these sorts of things, varied topics in music. And just being Randy Gardner's right hand, I learned so much from him. I owe so much of who I am and my own musicianship to having studied with him. He was just an exceptional mentor, and I'm continually grateful for him.
I got to meet Randy last year in New Hampshire, and he's an amazing individual. I think it's interesting that in music, maybe there's other disciplines that have this as well, but I think in music, I hear this so many times that these musicians that I'm that I admire and try to emulate. I think it's interesting that they have this, the pedigree is so important to them. And so, I mean, you talked about Bernard and Randy being a lot of the reason that you pursued music as a career, and you owe a lot to them. Is that is that common in music that you have this pedigree? I see it a lot. I'm just an observation, but is that something important? I studied with this master who studied for this master, that and that pedigree is critical to your career.
It's funny. We did this. I have two thoughts in this regard. The first was that when I was at CCM, and like I said, I was teaching studio class for Randy Gardner on occasion. I had a day where we did a family tree, and everybody would list their teacher, their teachers, and then their teachers, right? And so we grandfathered up. It's funny because Sean did meet Randy Gardner at Kennebett's Horn Camp in New Hampshire last year.
And
I
Bernard,
called him his horn grandfather. Yeah, I was like, you get to meet your horn grandfather because, like, right? Because he was my teacher. Anyway, we did a family tree, and it's incredible. Actually, by the time you trace back like one or two generations, we've all had like the same teachers. So you find that like all these connections, that all these ideas are kind of springing from actually the same people. But the other thing I'll say is music is a meritocracy. I think that really having a name behind your, like you asked about, like, is it important that you studied with this person or went to this place? When you go to an audition, you could have an 8th grade diploma and play the horn great, and nobody cares. Auditions are blind. You're behind a screen. But the opposite is also true. You could have gone to Juilliard and you could show up and play terribly and you're out. I mean, like they don't care. It's like everything is based on merit. And so I think less important from a, like, in terms of your career, less important from I'm going to get this position because I studied here with this person. But of course, finding the right person and having them as a mentor is the only way that you're going to. You absolutely, US isn't important. Finding the right teacher to guide you is, of course, it's essential. There's no way. There's no way to go it alone, really, in music. I mean, I guess, I don't know, maybe you could facilitate with a lot of YouTube videos, but I take it back. There's no way. You have to have that guiding spirit and that guiding force.
So talk about your time in Hungary as a Fulbright scholar. First, talk about what is the Fulbright program, which is amazing, and then I'd love to hear about your time in Hungary.
Sure, absolutely. So, like I said, I dedicated my dissertation during my doctorate to these oral training methods that we could hear, that we have like a very clear image hearing in our mind before we play. And so I was looking at methodologies for how to teach this, right? And there's different music methodologies. I think probably the most famous one that people might respond to in the audience is Suzuki method. This is sort of, I feel like people know about this with the violin, or Van Delcroze, all of these different, people that have kind of codified different approaches to music education. And so when I was looking at how to teach oral concepts, I went at CCM. We had faculty that specialized in all these different methodologies and interviewed them and asked them, for resources and things I could look at, and became enamored when I met with the person that is the Kodai specialist there. Her name's Dr. Eva Floyd. So Kodai is he's no longer with us, was a Hungarian music educator, also a composer, philosopher, very good friends with Béla Bartók, for people who might know the composer Béla Bartók. And he developed this singing-based approach to music education. He used a lot of folk songs and things that became systematic throughout Hungary. And solfège is everywhere there. It's like they treat it there like we do math or science or as STEM or English. Music is considered part of the standard curriculum within the day. And so I was looking at these singing-based methods, these Kodai-based methods, and could just tell, oh my gosh, this would work beautifully for horn players. It would just naturally, I could use the books today. Like they're fantastic. So I started using Kodai methods with horn players, and we're just eating up. Like I would go and do these workshops and things, and horn players were like, "This is just incredible! It's incredible." So I love Kodai, and I was loving this approach to solfège, and felt a teensy bit, even though I was doing all this research in my dissertation, I felt a little bit like a fraud because I had never been to Hungary. I had never really immersed myself in Kodai. And I love travel. I had always wanted to do a Fulbright.
How did you
And
hear
so
about
I guess I should actually explain. The first time I ever heard about the Fulbright was from Jeff Agrell, actually, who taught horn at the University of Iowa. And he played in the orchestra in Lucerne in Switzerland for many years. And I remember asking him about that, like, oh, that seems like the coolest thing to go play in Europe. And he goes, well, you should consider a Fulbright. It's, have the government send you over to Europe. So the Fulbright grant was started after World War II. There was a senator by the last name of Fulbright, and everybody in Congress is looking at each other like, how do we avoid that happening again? How do we avoid, World War II and promote sort of engagement between countries and mutual understanding and appreciation and respect? And so Fulbright proposed that there be a certain amount of funds appropriated every year to send scholars, researchers, creative minds abroad on specified projects, and to sort of be cultural ambassadors. That's what they call it, cultural ambassadors. It's like the fanciest, that's the fanciest thing it could ever possibly be called. Be cultural ambassadors for the United States. So now it's an annual sort of competition that you send in a proposed research study of some kind. Mine was to go to Hungary and again just get my butt kicked in solfège for a year and really learn and immerse myself in Kodai method. And then I would sort of write materials, come back to the United States and be able to teach in this format. So that's exactly what I did. It's a very, very long and intensive application process because I mean the United States is spending a bunch of money on sending you abroad and making sure that you're going to represent the country well and that you're going to actually fulfill what it is you promised to deliver, all these things. So a lot of written interviews and written materials and all sorts of things. But
I think you're so humble in stating that you're a Fulbright scholar. I mean, just to give people an understanding of what this is. Mostly it is Harvard, Yale, Princeton, Ivy League, postdoctorate candidates, right? And you cannot believe the list of celebrities that are your alumni as Fulbright scholars that include
Renee Fleming did a
Renee
Fulbright.
Fleming, Linus Pauling, Del Chihuly, who
Chihuly! Oh, I know. I'm like so proud to be about. Yeah.
him, right? Aaron Copland. And then a lot of political individuals, Bill Clinton, Nelson Mandela, Colin Powell, Angela Merkel, Bono just was awarded a Fulbright award last 2 years ago, I think. So, I mean, Natalie, you're in this company of royalty, and so I think it's funny you always downplay this. This is amazing that you had this opportunity and that you share this award with these other amazing geniuses, which is
I snuck in there. I just blow hot air through a. That's all I do. It was like the best year. I shouldn't say it was the best year of my life because I've since gotten married and like I love my husband. But it was just an unbelievable year. I would not be the person, the musician that I am without that year. It completely transformed me. It was incredible in every single way. I just had the most incredible time. I would love to. I dream. I don't think a day goes by I don't think about Hungary. It's just with me always. It's always present. I love it so much. I dream of going back all the time.
So let's talk about your time there and you studying solfège. You talked a little about how, I mean, solfège is a discipline, but for a lot of people that don't understand the history and the mechanics of solfège, let's talk about that. talk about the history of solfège, talk about how solfège originated in Central and Eastern Europe primarily, right?
This is a
You
centuries-old tradition, yeah.
So I found some antique books that were written in the mid 1800s that talked about solfège, which solfège came about, the term solfège came about through two of the syllables, sol and fa, that came together as solfège. But what I didn't realize, I mean, you and I have been working solfège for so long now, but that it was from the 10th century. It was I think he was a Franciscan monk, a Catholic monk, Arizo, who took the Catholic hymn, St. John the Baptist, and took the first syllables of this hymn, ut, that now is do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, and then t was added later, from the syllables of this hymn and used it as a syllable for each of the scale in C, which I
Yeah.
love that. I love that history.
Yeah. Did you know, you say something runs the gamut, or we talk about the gamut?
Yeah.
So it used to be that do was called oot, and I don't know enough. My solfège history isn't good
It
enough
was
to know
Latin.
why.
It was a Latin word for John the Baptist, the hymn of John the Baptist, right? So ut, and then we changed it to do
Yeah,
over
I
the
don't know
years.
why it changed to do, but oot. So gamma oot is the lowest. Gamma is the lowest oot, like the lowest pitch, the lowest do. And so when you say something runs the gamut, or the gamut, it's just like all the way back to the lowest. Like it's
Okay.
all of it. So that's where the term gamut comes from. It's literally gamma oot. So just a
I
little
love
piece,
that.
that there's like some Jeopardy knowledge for you sometime, a little bit of
So
trivia.
when I tell people that I've learned music through solfège, and they most people in the US have never heard it, even in Western Europe. Most people in Western Europe don't know about it until I say, you've watched The Sound of Music. You know that Maria
Right.
taught the kids how started music lessons with the kids in The Sound of Music through this do re mi fa sol la ti do. That is solfège, and then as I explain it to them, that it makes sense. But this has been going on for over 1,000 years in Central and Eastern Europe.
Yeah. I think Julie Andrews did more for solfège in whatever year The Sound of Music came out than like centuries. We owe Rodgers and Hammerstein's
Yes,
a lot,
a
just
lot.
like Ricola for the alphorn, right? I mean,
Exactly. So I think it's got this amazing tradition, a lot of science behind it. What I loved is when one of the first times you and I met, you talked about how when you learn a new language as a child, that you learn through listening, repeating, writing, reading, and then writing. And as you said, in Western Europe and in the US, we typically teach music by here's some music, read it. And that this concept of solfège, where you listen, you then sing, you read, and then write, is the natural progression, how we learn a language. It really is rooted in that science of learning a new language.
absolutely. And I remember so distinctly when I was in Hungary, we would go do class observations, and they were all in Hungarian, and my Hungarian is like kichi kichi, like I just have a little bit of Hungarian under my belt, but like knew enough. And of course, music's international, right? So much of it you could intuit just by watching. I watched a kindergarten class with a wonderful teacher, and she started the day, these little kids, and she would walk around the room. They're all kind of sitting. She had, Yonapod kivanok. Yonapod kivanok means good morning, everyone, or like good morning. And the kids would all sing back, Yonapod kivanok. And then she would do a different pattern, Yonapod kivanok, Yonapod kivanok. It's the same two pitches, which is Sami in the scale, the fifth note and the third note. These kids, they're how old are you in kindergarten? 6, I don't know. They're not thinking like, oh, sol me, okay, the 5th and 3rd scale degree. No, they're just playing games. They're repeating after the teacher. Or she would do a different thing with, I can't remember how to say the name now. What is your, she would say in Hungarian, what is your name? My name's Mikolas, or whatever. So these kids are playing around, they're playing games and just hearing and speaking and playing. And it's not until when they get a little older, okay, these are so me. But that pitch relationship has been ingrained from all kinds of repetitive play, fun play. So when you finally go to label it, notice, of course, like I said, we listened first and then we spoke. Then we will actually learn to read it on the page. But it's already there. It's already been instilled in your brain, right? It would be like, again, handing somebody a book and expecting them to read it like in English, to read it out loud for you, having never heard the English language. Like how on earth would they possibly do that? So there's just, as you said, a natural progression of listening, speaking, reading, and then writing that works the most intuitively when you're learning music, but we tend to just go straight to the reading part, unfortunately.
So in this episode that Lauren and I recorded about lifelong learning, I talked about how I had no music foundation. I couldn't read music. I had been to Switzerland on this business trip and fell in love with this music and the instrument of the alphorn, and had always in the back of my mind for 30 years thought at some point I would love to. I just loved it. It was emotional and spiritual, and it was a time in my life that I can still remember this vividly, hearing this old musician play this most amazing music on the alphorn, and thought someday I'm going to learn how to do that. Well, in 2019, I decided I'm going to go down this path. I worked with our friend, a common friend that you and I have, Tony Brazelton, for some time. And he finally, I'll never forget this. I'd been working with him during COVID. I think if I look at how the stars aligned for me to meet you and go down this path, if COVID had not happened, I don't know if I would be doing this. I really don't. But I got Tony to come work with me after a lot of coercion. He came to my office. We played in our classified conference room. And I can remember him just at the end of 2020. I'd been working with him for some time, since probably March or April of 2020 through the end of the year. I can remember he put his hand on my shoulder and he said, "You are terrible. You just need a music foundation. You need to go to Weber State or one of these universities and get some music theory, because you're done. You can't progress beyond where you are." Oh my goodness. And then right after that, you and I met, and I remember you sent me an email in early 20, I don't know if it was the end of 2020 or early 2021. I've sort of lost track of this, but I was going to go to Weber State University. I'd enrolled in their music program, and I was going to get a degree, pursue a degree at Tony's recommendation in music. And you sent me this email and said, "Don't do that. That's not the right thing for you. I will help you with this." So maybe you can talk about your recollection of all of that. But that was magical that you saw and thought, maybe I could help this poor guy.
Well, right. So we met because you were on the podcast, the Alphorn
Right.
podcast that Rob was interviewing, Rob Brazelton. And you and I were chatting, and you told me your story about picking up the Alphorn after hearing it. And I said to you, "So do you read music?" And you kind of, "No, not really. I kind of play and I learn things, like I kind of listen and play." And I was, "Do you want to learn?" Like, this is kind of like what I specialize in. And you just right after you said, "When can we meet?" You were just so intrepid. Like, you were so hungry for guidance. I can tell, because Tony, that our mutual friend, who is a fantastic alphornist, it's just not a teacher. It's just that kind of not what he does by his own like he would tell you himself.
He's
Um,
recorded
so
7 or 8, I don't know, a dozen albums on the alphorn. He's one of the most famous, most accomplished alphorn players in the world. I'm so lucky to have known him and have the opportunity to play with him. And I get to play with him every week still, but not a teacher. And I didn't read music, and which was really holding me back.
yeah. So anyway, so that's kind of how that started. Was just that I asked if you were interested in learning. Yes, yes, yes. And so
Goodness. So I didn't go
now,
to I didn't go to the university, and I thought, okay, I'll see how this goes. You and I would meet a couple times a week via Zoom, and you're in Chicago. I'm in wherever I am in the world, which we would do this. We we would meet when I was in all over in Europe, in DC, and
you've had lessons all over the world. I mean, it's really incredible, and it speaks to your dedication, which is like truly, truly inspiring to me too.
well, so here I mean, I just can't believe that you and I crossed paths and that I had this opportunity to work with one of the most accomplished, most amazing horn teachers in the world. And so shortly after you and I started talking, you said, I'm writing a book and I'm going to give you some of the. So I've got it here and I love it. It's so great. A singing approach to horn playing. And when it was finally published just last year, end of last year, and I got it and I went, oh my goodness, these are all of my lessons that
I
I
know
had.
these songs.
So I mean, that was so fun to get this book and then go through this and say, "Oh my goodness, this was the path that I took with Natalie." And I think you would write this, and then you would give it to me and work it with me in my various lessons. Is you taught me music theory through solfège, and it was just amazing. I remember that early on, you and I have talked about this a lot, that I was so, I mean, I can tell you, I was so embarrassed to sing. And I had no music background. I never had sung before to anybody. And I was so, I don't, I was embarrassed to do this. And you kept, pulling on this, and it was not going well. Talk about the early days of us working together.
I can see it. I can remember where you were. You were in DC, actually, I think, for our first lesson. And I would sing something and ask you to sing it back, and I could just tell that you were mortified. Like this was like, and I don't know how much you've told the audience in your, like previously. I mean, like you, not only had you not done music, but like musical culture in your family, it was completely absent. It wasn't like,
No.
you know, you had a parent or a sibling or something that had kind of done this. I mean, like it was just you, you had never sung or so I just had to sort of reconfigure, okay, we have to get him before we do really any training, we have to get him comfortable with his voice, just singing, like anything, anything at all. We're not even going to worry about reading notes on the page or anything else, just getting used to singing and being comfortable with your voice with so much a part of it.
I look back on that, and I talked a lot about this in this recording that I did last year with Lauren on lifelong learning, and just the being able to be submissive and being humble enough to subject yourself to a lot of failure. And that's what I had never done anything in my life, and clearly not for 30 years had I done anything that I wasn't the best at. I had always been, my business is consulting, and I was expected at a young age when I was the CEO of this company to be the expert, and I really had lost the concept of being humble enough to learn something new. And you taught me how to be submissive, how to, I remember you would always say to me, this is just new for you. It's okay. Yeah, you're not going to be good at it at first. We're going to work through this.
I say this to students all the time, because I teach at DePaul University. I teach a class called Oral Training 1, which is the solfège class that I told you I had my light bulb moment in freshman year of college. I teach that now, which I love it. I love working with the freshmen. I love singing. I love, like, it's like my favorite. But it's like the organic chem for anybody who's like pre-med, right? It's that class that everybody has to take, that is like the weed out class. It's hard.
Everybody hates it.
Everybody hates it, except I do. I am the mom that pours Velveeta all over the broccoli. Like, nobody wants to eat broccoli, but I'm going to make this as damn delicious as I can for you. I really do try to make it fun, but it's hard. It's really hard. That is a crier class. I don't
By
think
the way, I've got a year of organic chemistry, so just so you know.
So you know exactly what it is a crier class. I don't think I have ever taught a single semester of that class and not had somebody cry. It happens
Right. Somebody
multiple.
cry. So when
Somebody
I was
cries.
crying, that's not
That was
unusual.
not an isolated incident. I am so used to this. Oh my God. But anyway, point being that I will get these students that I can't do this. I'm not good at this. I'm not good at this. And I say, stop. You are new at this.
Right.
There is a big difference between being new at something and being bad at something. I always joke, I'm like, I'll tell you when you get to oral training 4 if you're bad. It's just a joke. But being new at something, very different than being bad at something. In my music ed undergrad, you have to take all of the instruments, right? Because you're certified to teach band for fourth graders, where you have to teach clarinet and tuba and flute and you name it. And I would always say I felt like half of the value of that class, besides just learning, how to actually physically play the instrument, was just the process of being a complete beginner at something again. Because at that point, you're competent on your instrument, right? I could play the French horn, no problem. And you tend to lose a sense of what it is to really start something completely brand new and how demoralizing it is. Here I am sitting in this class. I remember, oh my God, 8 a.m. oboe methods. Sitting there trying to play an oboe, and just, there's like 10 of us in the class. I mean, like, just imagine the worst sounds in the world. But going through that and the process of being new at something, I think it is so important. My husband's learning the cello right now. He's also an economist. He's in investments, learning cello as an adult, and kind of watching him go through that. It's so Sean knows I took swim lessons last year, having never ever learned how to swim. And it was like my arms and legs weren't connected to my body. It was like, how do I even walk down the street? I'm so uncoordinated. How do I do this? I think is so important for anybody. I don't care what it is. Pick something. Be new at something. It's so important.
So you and I worked together for about 6 months, and let me tell you, I have never told you this before, but Natalie, so my schedule is, I've got these back-to-back meetings. I mean, I would do 10 or 12 meetings a day, still do, and I would see your name on my calendar and I would just go, oh my gosh, it would give me anxiety. I was meeting with the US Congress, with the administration, and then I would see your name at the end of the day and I would just think, oh my goodness,
I can't do it.
I would have so much just like anxiety, and I just would think, oh, this is going to be horrible. You and I went for about 7 months, and it was just painful. I know for you, you probably have never had a student like me. I mean, you are working with the very best musicians in the world that come to you as one of the leading subject matter experts in this field, and they have 25 years of training, and by the time they get to you, and here I am with that, I can't read a note. I can remember I went to Africa, and we must have had this weird connection, because I was thinking about this the whole time. I was going to tell you, I can't do this anymore. This is a waste of your time. It's a waste of mine. I think I even said that. I just said, Natalie, you are wasting your time with me. You are this incredible teacher, and I don't know why you're even spending time with me, because this is not working. And I mean, do you remember that? You sent me an email while I was in Africa, and where I had been thinking, I'm just going to tell her this isn't working. I can't do that. I can't do it, and it's a waste of her time, my time. And you said, let's reconnect. Let's go back and look at some of this. And what you did during that time was so transformative for me, is that you saw how I learned. This is your superpower, and this is why you're such an amazing teacher at in your DNA, is that you saw how I learned and you built curriculum so that I could understand what you were trying to teach me, not the other way around. Not here, I'm going to force this on you. I'm going to force this work on you. And you reworked this curriculum that you and I have since pursued over the last 2 years, and it has been amazing.
This is part of why I wanted to apprentice to Randy Gardner, is that he had so many differentiated methods. It's this like gigantic pedagogical toolbox with different strategies for explaining things. I tell because I do a fair amount of coaching now of like music education students and future teachers. And one thing I'll always reference with them, or sort of an image I'll give them, is I'll say, have you been to a foreign country where they don't speak English? And usually most of them or some of them have. And I'll say, have you ever tried to interact with somebody who does not speak English, and you ask them something in English and they kind of look at you like, I don't get it. What and then you just repeat yourself slower and louder, right? Where's the train station? Where is the train station? It's like, it doesn't matter how slowly you say it or how many times or how loudly, they're still not going to understand English, right? But we tend to, a lot of, especially novice teachers tend to teach that way. Like, okay, this didn't work the first time. I'm not saying, like, sometimes you do just need to repeat something, but like, if you just keep hammering the same, like, why, that's the definition of insanity, right? Is doing the same thing and expecting different results. So like, if something's not working with a student, don't just do it over and over again and expect different results. You have to be intuitive about listening to that student. One of the other things I say to them is that the student is the curriculum, right? Not to a certain extent, of course, there's a canon, there's certain objectives that need to be universal and need to be applied to everyone. But in terms of your methodology, you have to be willing and flexible to listen and intuit and be really present with the student if you want to really communicate with them and to make a difference. Differentiated methods are so important. So your lessons are totally different than everybody else's lessons.
Sure.
In a good way,
You are an amazing teacher, Natalie, you've changed my life forever. And not just, and I mean, I really want this to be the essence of this recording, that it's not just that you taught me music theory, that, yeah, you've taken me from ground zero to being able to read complex music, and you and I sing in every key. And I mean, we're doing some amazing things that even when I talk to musicians, they think that's amazing. But you have taught me you've taught me about discipline. You've taught me about allowing myself to fail and learning from those failures, and the courage necessary to do something new, and then, I mean, just other things. I mean, recognizing patterns. I think differently because of you. There's a lot to this that I think is, and I tell you this a lot, that playing the alphorn is meditative and spiritual for me, and it's creative. It's a creative outlet for me, and I play with this big group that's amazing, and it's taught me teamwork, and it's taught me just, I can't tell you how transformative that our time together has been for me as a person. Not just that you've taught me music theory, but you've taught me these skills that I just it's invaluable. And I'm so grateful, so humbled to have this opportunity to work with you every week. You're amazing.
Well, the gratitude and the admiration goes absolutely both ways. And, you know, as a broader point, I think it's so important for teachers to learn from their students as well. And if all my students had even an ounce of your tenacity, the things that they could do, it's been remarkable to watch you. And like I said, you have every reason, 12 meetings a day and your travel schedule and everything else, you have every reason to be not nearly as dedicated as you are. And, you know, you have absolutely made it a priority in your life to dedicate yourself to this and really spend the time to do it well. And when I tell people that you went from not being able to match pitch or sing to now being able to sing entire pieces on solfège from memory, they're like their eye pop out of their head. They're like, are you kidding me? And so I have only guided you. You have done the work and really made it your own. And so it's been inspiring for me to watch that as well. So I am also, like I said, mutually grateful and admire. There's nobody that I admire more than you.
And I feel the same way. You're one of my favorite people in the whole world. Can I ask you one more question? What do you do when you're not teaching, writing, performing? What do you do for your creative outlet?
You know what? I've really, and Sean's going to laugh because he knows that I love to eat. I learned how to cook during the pandemic. So I got married during the pandemic. So that was part of the motivation for it. But I've always loved, like I said, I love food and eat, and just decided that this was my time, especially because nobody's going to restaurants, right? So I absolutely love cooking. That is like at the end of the day, like getting to make dinner. My husband jokes he's like the luckiest guy ever because, you know, other people want to do takeout or whatever. I'm like, no, I'm gonna cook dinner. So cooking is kind of become my new favorite thing. I also run a lot. That's sort of my, like, if my brain, it just feels like it's going to explode. I live very close to Lake Michigan, so I get to run on the lakefront trail. That is my therapy. Sort of like Sean skis. I get out and run. So it's cooking and running. Those are like my two favorite favorites.
This was so fun, Natalie. Thank you for doing this. Thank you for working with me, not giving up on me, teaching me so much about myself and about just these different skills that I would never have learned. You're amazing. You are such a gifted musician, author, and teacher, most of all. And I will forever be grateful for this. You did this concert not too long ago, and one of your teachers, you got to perform with him, and he said, "This is my student." I mean, you could just tell he was so proud. "This is my student, Dr. Natalie Grana. That's my fantasy, is that someday you and I are going to be performing together, and you're going to say, it's my student." So,
oh my gosh, it will absolutely happen. You and I have like 2 or 3 things at least that we're going to be performing together this year. So.
Thank you so much, Natalie. You're amazing. I really appreciate you taking this time with us.
Oh, this is a lot of fun. Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, take care. See ya.
Take care.